Let me proudly announce our next speaker, Mr. Vikram Shubhendra. Am I correctly sounding, pronouncing now?
My name is Shubhendra Vikram.
Okay, so your turn, please. 15 minutes of your delicious speech. We are listening to you carefully.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay,
So,
we can hear you well, we see you. So let's start.
Yeah, okay. So I'll start by introducing myself. I am Shubhendra Vikram from India, and I'm founder of a startup called Hapram Studio, right? And in the blockchain space, my startup works on the Steam blockchain. We have a product that's called OneRamp, which is for artists and creators, where we have around 15 global artist communities, and people can host contests, challenges, and collaborate with each other. So this is my role in the blockchain space. And as mentioned, my topic for today is perspective for blockchain in 2020. So I'll start with the presentation here. 1 second, so let it just load, right? So in this talk, I'll be talking about a host of different perspective and important events that I assume will be of importance in the year 2020. So before I begin explaining the topics and all, I'll just take you, 1 second, yeah. So I'll just keep sharing my screen. So I'll just take you through the evolution that has happened recently in the blockchain space. So if we talk about the year 2018, so 2018 was about proof of concepts in the blockchain space. A lot of blockchain startups and projects came, but eventually they died out. 2019 was about experimentation, if I have to say in one word. So MVPs were built, and that is how the space grew. A lot of weed was taken out and the space started evolving. 2020 again will not be very exotic. You won't see any exotic things happening, but the MVPs that have been in the space will continue to develop, and you'll see exciting maturity happening in that area, right? So in this talk, I'll be taking you through some important events and important factors that I think will be in focus in 2020. One is the Twitter news. Another is China's take on blockchain. Ethereum never misses out in a blockchain talk. Privacy tools, regulations, and finally I'll conclude it. Right. So let me just start with one news that has really grabbed my attention and a lot of people across the world. It's like social media is something which has been under a lot of fire recently for privacy issues, security, transparency, and things like that. And recently, on 11th December, Twitter's founder Jack Dorsey tweeted this, that they are actually looking forward to a small team which can work on a decentralized standard for social media, and eventually Twitter becoming a client of this standard. So I'll just tell you what is the quantum of this tweet and what does it means. It means that probably if this thing rolls out, and if it will definitely start in 2020, then instead of Twitter, the company having control over Twitter, the social network, it might be possible that people have the control over it. So I'll just explain in Jack's word what Jack said, that it will allow them to access and contribute to a much larger corpus of public conversations. And like I was talking about, I'm really sorry for the interruption. And like I was talking about the Twitter thing. So this really caught the attention of a lot of people in the blockchain space, and it actually means a lot. So one of the things that Jack mentioned in the conversations of this tweet is that Twitter will actually look forward to build an open recommendation algorithm which promotes healthy conversation. So what this means is that the entire fuss around the social media space is around how content is placed. And if this standard goes in practice, so probably the open recommendation system is one of the most important premise to watch. If somebody is following this news, they'll want to look at it, that where this thing is going, right? finally, this is also from that thread. It talks about that there is already technology which exists. Like I said, 2019 has been about MVPs and experimentation. There is technology for durable hosting, governance, and even monetization. But here the real work starts if you have to take this technology to mass adoption. A couple of important projects that I would like to mention that people can follow. One is the Steam network and another is Enigma protocol. Steam is already a blockchain based social media network which with its issues provides you with monetization capabilities. There is decentralized governance, and the project lately has been like in black and blue, but right now it's things are improving at the end. The other important project which was mentioned a lot in the tweet series was Enigma. Enigma is a project which does computations on encrypted data. So for this particular thing to roll in, I think these are one of the most important projects to watch out. So Twitter news will be, from my perspective, one of the most important things in 2020 going forward. The next thing is China. So if you talk about any new technology right now, you cannot miss talking about China, because recently, as we have seen from the Western countries, there have been a shift in the innovation capital to China, be it in robotics, hardware, AI, 5G networks. And China is also looking forward to do the same in blockchain technology. So Chinese Premier Xi Jinping recently in a speech declared blockchain technology as national priority. So now what it means for China is that now not only in tier 1 cities, but also in tier 2 cities, there is huge investment in the research and development capital. And this means a lot of innovation on the ground is going to happen in China, right? The next important thing is China is expected to launch its central bank digital currency. Now, what does it means is that like Facebook has tried to launch Libra, but Facebook does it in capacity as a private company, and it has a lot of backlash from the government and the regulators. But in China, this has been planned by the government itself. So if this currency comes in, China will use all its power to make this currency ahead of Libra or any other government for that matter, and try to establish it as a global currency. Like as a global currency, this is a tough thing to talk about. Like it's not something that something becomes a global standard, but China is really leading the way, and the way it is progressing, this is something very interesting to watch in 2020. And third thing is this, that China is actually, with all the other technologies, China is looking as blockchain innovation as a route to get advantage over US in its trade war, right? So trade war has always been about exports and agriculture, but now it has completely shifted to the technology landscape, right? And China has already lost its biggest export partner, which has been US. So it's trying to advance its exports in in Europe, Middle East, and Africa around the Silk Road economic belt. So the advantage of having a superior blockchain technology will give China enormous trading opportunity with the emerging technology markets. So to conclude this slide, I would say China's policies, China's innovation is very interesting thing to in the blockchain space to watch out for. I personally think that China will lead the innovation, and we should definitely keep an eye on it. And the third thing is Ethereum 2.0. So as I mentioned at the start of my talk, that no blockchain talk can actually happen without talking about Ethereum, because anything on the code base, Ethereum is still the leader. EOS is a competitor, but Ethereum leads the way. So what has happened this year is that particularly in 2018 and before that, Ethereum was under a lot of backlash from the community, that roadmaps is not being followed, updates are not being given, community feedback is not being taken into consideration. But this year particularly, what has happened is the communication and the roadmap, following of the roadmap has increased a lot from the Ethereum Foundation, and this has increased confidence of the entire community, right? So this is a very interesting premise to watch, and for all the blockchain projects which have even failed, so I think roadmaps, following roadmaps and giving updates is the most important factor that actually tells you about the health of any blockchain project. And I think Ethereum is doing good on that, so it will be a very interesting premise. Recently, I think just like 18 to 19 hours before, Ethereum also released Solidity version 0.6.0, which is the newest version. I haven't tried it out yet, but people are talking about it, and I think it will be a very interesting premise. It gives a lot of improved capabilities to the developers. So Ethereum 2.0 is again a thing to watch out in 2020. Another thing is privacy protocols. So if you look at any blockchain protocol, right, any public blockchain network, so blockchains are inherently bad at privacy, right? So for blockchain to work, for any mass adoption or any technology to be built on it, privacy protocols are very, very important. So what has happened is that companies like Ernst and Young, EY, which is a very prominent multinational consulting company, they're investing heavily into the development of privacy tooling for public Ethereum ecosystem. So this means that a lot of use cases, payment systems will be able to directly build on the blockchain protocols, which is not possible right now. So in 2020, you will see a lot of zero knowledge and multi-party computation projects maturing and entering the blockchain space. And this is also an interesting premise to watch. So currently, if you see, even in the VC funding space, MPC, like the multi-party computations, is the hottest bet right now. So these are the two things, in terms of privacy protocols, which will be very important. And if somebody wants to look out for the promising projects in this space, so there is one project called Nightfall by EY, the company that I just mentioned, and another is Enigma Protocol again, which I mentioned in the start of my talk. So these companies will these products actually provide the structure that blockchain needs for mass adoption. So privacy protocols again are a plus for 2020. One more thing is the Bitcoin Lightning Network. So Bitcoin Lightning Network is actually a layer 2 implementation over Bitcoin network that provides you with instant Bitcoin transaction and payments, right? It leverages kind of the off-chain data, and it works with very low fees. So because Bitcoin network, all of you know, is very slow, so this Lightning network will see an increased number of applications. There will be nodes, channels that will be created on it. So this is again one more important premise to watch out for if you're interested in this space, right? And uh, the last thing that in the things to watch out for in the blockchain space is the regulation space, which stands at the center of it all, right? Without regulations, most of these technologies that are being built will never see the light of the day. So this is another very interesting and the most important premise, I would say, for the entire ecosystem. So till now, what has happened is that regulations have been a challenge across the world, and and why it has happened is that, most importantly, the government, the people who are involved in policy making, have not been able to grasp the technology in its entirety. So the emotions around this technology and everything have been driven by apprehensions around cryptocurrency. So that is shedding down as of now. So you'll see regulations as one of the prevailing blockchain trends in 2020. And because regulations will clear what things are unregulated and which things will get regulated, so anything that comes under regulation and it's and is given a green signal will obviously attract investment. So some whitelisted things will come up and it will attract investor capital. So I think it will again be a premise to watch out for the regulation frameworks and everything. So if I, so these were the major areas that I talked about that will be interesting to watch out in the year 2020. If I have to conclude like how this year is going to be, so 2020 will obviously be a very crucial year for blockchain and for people who are really waiting for mass adoption. So I would say personally that mass adoption and anything will not come so early. Like 2020 is not an year for that. The technology is still in a nascent stage. What we'll see is that it will mature, the underlying tech will grow, and the global regulatory framework will actually start to come into place. So these are the things that will happen. So anyone who is really excited that blockchain will actually do a lot of adoptions and all, it won't happen in 2020. So that's what I will tell from my personal standpoint. But people who are very interested that where this technology will go, I think 2023 will be a very promising year because many of these technologies we started in 2016, 2017. At that point of time, they'll be 5 to 7 years old, which is the optimal time which takes to actually get a healthy something out of a technology. So that will be one of the years that I'll be watching out for, right? So these are the things you can actually go through them and try to follow if you want to look into the space more. So that will be it from my side, and it was a pleasure speaking here, right? So I would like to thank the organizers and everyone. And if you guys have any questions, I can't see anyone in the audience from here, but whoever is listening, you can shoot me questions on Twitter. My Twitter handle is mentioned, and I'll be happy to answer if there is anything out there. Right.
Shukran, thank you very much for sharing your ideas. Unfortunately, we are running so close to our agenda, so we have no time for asking a question, but we have got all your ideas. We have understood all your hopes. So thank you very much. This huge round of applause is coming to you. Shukran Vikram from India. Thank you for contributing to the key blockchain for the force here.